Okay. Who was with me last year when we did this? Anybody? Ledesma?
Yes, sir.
Cool. All right, guys. So a few little things to remind everybody about who's new to the process. So the way we did this last year, we did it by campus. And so when we talk CNA, comprehensive needs assessment, this is something that happens every year as part of the federal requirements for reviewing programs, reviewing services, reviewing curriculum, reviewing everything we do, and then essentially putting together a game plan for what we want to do to kind of improve, set goals, just those types of things. And so I don't want to make the CNA more than what it has to be, because as the committee for the district, you guys are well aware of the strengths and weaknesses. You have insight into our data. You know what we do well at. You guys know what we still struggle with. And, you know, if you want to kind of capture everything underneath like the core STAR EOC context, we've been very solid in the reading and the RLA. And then, of course, our math has been consistently one of our like weaker points, right? And so as a result, we've responded by doing things like HQIM, increasing support services through like ESC and Texas Lesson Study, and providing additional professional development opportunities to just get everybody up to speed on HQIM, and specifically with a focus on math K through 8. And like using this year as an example to, do we want to extend that to high school? And kind of using that as a barometer at the elementary levels to determine if we really want to make that something K through 12. And currently, we've decided not to, right? And so that's just a decision we've made based on us monitoring our needs and kind of monitoring where we currently are in our skill set and our ability level and just our readiness level. And so that's just a decision that's made in addition to several other decisions we'll make through this process. And so does that kind of make sense? That as we go through this process, we're supposed to like learn all the things that we should be doing, or gosh, if we only knew this 6 months ago. And then that's the opportunity for us to then say, well, we can't go back in time. However, for future purposes, we can kind of do some things differently in order to either mitigate an effect from something we don't want, or increase something or enhance something we're seeing happening that we want to continue or expand, or like, you know, reach out to the rest of the district so that others are aware of something good that's happening.
I have a question, sir.
Yep.
Anytime we meet about these different documents and such, whatever they are,
Yeah.
all this important stuff,
Yeah.
the focus is always on math and reading. Why is like science never considered a focus?
Because it's not really been a problem for us. And I will say that as we look a little bit closer at the data,
I feel like it's
maybe we have a difference in opinion, or perhaps maybe we're noticing trends or patterns that are kind of noticeable in other areas. And maybe that's stuff we should be talking about, so that as we talk about maybe the actual root cause issue with what we're seeing, maybe in science, maybe in social studies, maybe in elective, we can apply that one difference across the board to see if it'll prove everything that we're talking about, rather than just focusing in one area into one topic and seeing if that's what we can do, right?
Yes.
So,
Can I add something?
yeah,
I will say that only because of my experience with HQIM, more specifically the reading, there's a lot of cross-curricular. So we're also hitting a lot of the TEKS for science and social studies in the ELAR passages and stuff, and the reads. So there is going to be a little bit more exposure to some of the things that normally or naturally would not have been happening at that lower level, because we tend to push the science and social studies aside because we want to focus on the math and the reading. So that's a little
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I teach 5th grade math and science. And I know when they brought on Amplified, they were told that because we were cut down to 30 minutes from 45. And I can tell you there was maybe, one story
There's not a
that
whole lot.
crossed over. There was, other than that, nothing, what's the word I'm looking for? It didn't support
Significant
science
or-
like they said it was going to at all.
It depends on the grade level and depending on what you're looking at.
I mean,
I will say that.
the grade
because-
level that, we're testing for STAR, like I said, there was maybe one passage that kind of like skim the surface of what we were talking about in science, and that was the extent of it. So not enough to justify that
Right.
15 minutes of loss
Oh, no,
of
you
instruction
can't replace it.
at all. Like I said, they sold it to us like, oh yeah, it's gonna pick up that 15
Oh, yeah,
minutes and
no.
it's gonna be fine, and it wasn't
No.
at all.
It's just giving them a little bit more exposure than what they normally would have had with nothing, I guess you can say. And when you look at eighth grade social studies and the struggles that they have with introducing everything at their level, because it's been pushed aside for so long, any little thing helps. So even just the slightest little bit of exposure to some of it is at least helping in that way. And no, it doesn't have all the answers, and no, it doesn't have all the teaks, but it does have some exposure to it.
I, just some experience, and I'm not trying to like get into a battle about it or anything, but just in the experience of it this year, it did nothing for science at all. Like I said, it was like a half of one article, maybe had the word science in it, and that was it.
Yes, interdisciplinary connections is not nearly enough to replace or be a substitute for just teaching the essential teaks for the content.
Yeah, but like I said, they just made it seem like, oh, you're losing 15 minutes, but that's okay, because in
But we're
ELA,
gonna pick
they're
up
gonna,
the slack
they're
of
gonna
it
go over, and no,
Does
they
that
did not.
mean, Ms. Ledesma, you went over to the admin on that campus to tell them that we either need to increase the minutes during the day, or perhaps look at how we can create more time to actually explicitly teach science?
Yes, sir, and one of the ways that we started to somewhat implement it towards the end of this year was getting our STEAM lab involved. They go there once a week, so we are unable to currently go visit the science lab because of time, or only have 30 minutes. Hands-on activities are pretty much, you can't in 30 minutes. So we are been working with them to try to incorporate that, but it's been
Yeah, it's
a
hard.
little bit here and there, but not nearly enough to provide the gap of that 15 minutes a day that's lost.
Major issue right there.
It's a major issue.
That would be a major, major issue as far as how do we create time that doesn't currently exist to do the things we know we need to do,
Right.
but only if we have the right time to do those things.
Right.
It's like you're wedged in, it's like the rock and hard place situation with science.
Right, and we know science is facing the same struggle as social studies, where
Same
the
thing.
lower grades are pushing it off and
Yes.
pushing it off and pushing it off. So by the time we're like, okay, guys, we need to know this, they're like, what are you talking about?
Where
So-
you should be reviewing and moving and expanding on
It's
what
new
they
information
know.
to them.
It's- We are literally teaching,
Exposing.
explicitly exposing them, because they're coming in with no
Nothing.
foundation of
I'm
it.
very curious to see what the data looks like with the loss of time.
Well, as we know, if
I
we
think it's
don't
gonna be
teach,
impacted.
and if we're just hoping that through osmosis or just skill, like the skill will transfer, maybe so, hopefully so, but if you would think the majority of our kids will have that happen with them, that's probably not gonna be the case, especially at that level where they're learning all this stuff for the very first time, and many of them do need to have explicit instruction multiple times in order to retain and make those important connections for themselves, right? Especially if we're only teaching it one time or in isolation or for only a few minutes.
We also don't have a curriculum. That's something that we're looking at for next year, but.
That's something in the process of going through
Right.
right now.
Right, and I'm on that, and we're looking for one for next year, but right now, there's no curriculum, so you have time lost, you have no curriculum, you have new takes coming out next year.
New teams.
But that's just a need, a huge need that,
Huge need. So right now,
That's it.
currently, that would be like, if we were to like create the top 5 needs of the district, that would be definitely one of them. And if
Yes,
it
sir.
wasn't already mentioned, it would have been mentioned by me, just because time is of the essence. And knowing just how much is coming down from the state, just knowing how much accountability is being kind of extended and connected to other areas of what we do as educators and teachers. HQIM and the new instructional materials allotment and everything that the state's trying to do to kind of nudge everybody into the direction of HQIM. It's super important that we've already nudged ourselves in that direction, because at some point, we will realize how easy it is for us when we're learning how difficult it is for everybody else who's trying to get on the bandwagon, but they're a little late to the party at that point. And so what we've already gone through most of our bumps and bruises, the fact that we've gotten most of that out of the way, we're gonna be in very good shape moving forward, especially since I've protected our EMAT funds to where we can continue to support our very, very expensive HQIM with all the ancillary programming we like to also use with it. So nothing's going away, and we're not going to reduce anything related to student programming or things that we know help improve student achievement. None of that's going to be touched, none of that's going to be different unless we decide we want it to be different. Or new principal, new leadership, maybe a change there, but by and large, what we've got going on is what we're going to continue to do.
Right.
I'd be curious to find out the correlation between the reading skills and reading levels and the science test.
Me too, because literacy is for all.
Yes.
And it has to be factored into everything we do because all exams are essentially a literacy exam. So I'd be very
Yes.
curious to see, because generally, if you're not good or just a struggling reader, you're gonna struggle across the board.
That comprehension definitely hinders their ability to answer those questions.
Absolutely.
We did some data a couple of years ago, when I was a fifth grade teacher, and we made the connections between the science and the reading. And we found continuously, repeatedly for several years, that the students that did well in the reading did very, very well in the science, whether they knew science or not, but it was
Right, 'cause they
more
were
of
able
a
to-
common sense type of, they were able to inference, they were able
Reason through
to
it.
draw those
Higher
conclusions.
cognitive levels.
So there was that connection there. And then as they go into eighth grade, even though they may not know all of the stuff that happens in social studies, and that's pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But if they're able to understand those skills, those reading skills, they're able to also apply that into the reading, into the social studies, excuse me. And then the connection with the math was that a lot of the times, and again, this is just data that we discovered, was when a lot of the time, and I've been an ELA teacher, I was an ELA teacher most of my classroom career, and I will say that when I had to teach math, it was a nightmare. But I learned it, as we have to. But then what I started noticing is when I approached it as a reading teacher, my kids did better because those word problems, again, it goes back to the reading, but they can't picture in their mind. So if you're seeing 3 birds in a tree and one of them is flying away, they're not picturing that in their mind, and they're not able to understand that it's subtraction. So as they're reading this problem, they're too busy trying to read it, not understand it, and so it is connected to everything, and I think that's why across the board, the state has come into, we need to have writing and reading in all subject areas. But that, for data purposes, we did look into that for the science, and that we made those connections, and we made them also with the social studies and the reading. And then we did slightly with the math, but of course you need that computation there as well. So,
Like we
but
said,
that
I mean,
helps.
it's kind of like God, I cannot think of words today, holy
It's
smokes.
the end of the day.
One of those, gosh, what is it called? One thing depends on the other. What's wrong with my words?
Codependencies?
Oh, no, that's not the word I was thinking of. Well, that's not it. That was not it.
Well, let's not use big
No, I
words.
mean, like, we're, of course, in
Have a hard time here.
there's, of course, the big push for the college and career readiness.
Yes. Dual credit,
Yes,
CCMR
and
points.
I know we're heading in that direction in the lower grades, but I feel like at the moment, and I know it's new, but like I said, the support's really there for math and social, and reading. But those careers also include fields in science, and they're not gonna be where they need to be because they have no exposure to science right now, so.
And that's definitely something we definitely, I think we can all agree that as a district, just a focus on science, on STEM, on engineering, on like the labor market and the index and knowing our area and what are the high occupancy jobs. They're all in the STEM fields. But how many of our students are really pursuing STEM endorsement, STEM-like careers or STEM-like pathways, right? They should be getting an exposure and a really good sense if that's something of interest to them, right in primary and definitely in intermediate. All intermediate students that leave grade 5 to transition to grade 6 should all have experience, exposure in STEM, and should be able to understand how that relates to them and how that can be something that they can make into a future career or a passion of interest or something. If we're not really doing as much with STEM for our kids when it comes to the exposure or the hands-on or just the access from the classroom to the real world, then we're kind of definitely missing out on that piece, for sure.
I mean, they're just now going to get to the point where they're starting to barely understand the content. The connections to career and their future is not there at all. They don't have that understanding.
How do we fix that?
Somehow get us 15 more minutes of science a day and figure out a way to make all grade levels accountable for teaching of science because it is pushed to the side.
That's a good
But-
point. If we know we have an issue and we may have a solution and we're interested in holding everybody accountable, the only way to hold everybody accountable would be to have a solution that can be applied to everybody, right?
I mean, because at the end of the day, when STAR scores are released for science, let's say they do poorly, who's blamed?
The science teacher.
I'm blamed, the
duh.
fifth grade science teacher's blamed, but it's
It's
not just,
But
yeah, it's
in
not,
the
that's
sense
the
of
one I was
knowing
looking
what
for,
the-
domino effect, good grief.
But here's
That
the
was it.
beauty of knowing that you will never be blamed for something like that, because as a district, because we have become way more analytical with our data and are way more hands-on with what the data is telling us, rather than just what people are saying or what I think I may know based on things I've heard from a couple weeks ago, blah, blah, blah. Looking at the data, it's obvious that if all teachers are struggling and it's across the board and it's multiple campuses, surely it's not just a teacher problem or an individual
But it's al-
problem at that
yeah.
point. It's a
But
district
it's also
problem.
like community,
And state
community
Yes.
perspective. The average person at HEB, that has a grandkid that failed STAR science, they're gonna blame the teacher.
It's okay,
you
they're
know,
gonna blame
we
you.
know better,
They're gonna blame you
but-
for everything.
Oh, no, I know. Trust me, I've been blamed for some
They're gonna blame
things.
you for them not getting their taxes in on time.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
you won't be
yeah.
at fault for everything.
You want a new one?
Yeah, I want
You
a
want a
new
new
one.
one?
I definitely want a
I
new one.
got blamed for an email, not receiving an email that was sitting in her drafts, because she
That's it?
didn't hit send.
That's it.
How dare you not respond?
How come
I'll
you-
not pass.
You couldn't just reach into the computer system to pull out the email from her?
Trying so hard. That was a
That's it
new
right
one
there.
for me.
But
I think that like the conversations that y'all have had are now going down. Like we're having those conversations at the primary.
Yeah.
And we've actually had time to like look at the TEKS and like, if we don't teach this, it's never taught again.
Right.
So now we're having the conversations like picking a new science curriculum. What's gonna help us, help them to help y'all,
Right.
get them ready
Right.
for y'all. So I feel like those conversations that we've had this year are conversations that haven't had in a long
Never.
time.
Yeah.
So I
Very
think
long
that
time.
we won't see it right away, but
Right.
I feel like in years to come, we'll really see these babies come up
Yeah.
better prepared when they get to y'all in fifth grade.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes.
good
That's- I think-
conversations I feel like are coming out of all this.
Right.
And I
And
think
more
that's
planning.
part of the issue has been the alignment.
Absolutely.
There's lack of alignment.
Right, and
Really.
alignment isn't something that can just be fixed overnight, right?
And a growth mindset too, not like delivering the message like, okay, this is what it is. It's like, okay, this is what it is. What are we gonna do about it? And
Exactly.
like people willing to
Have to be
help.
willing to adapt and willing to
Yeah,
change
And I
and,
feel like that mindset is just, it's helped a lot.
It's what you
Yeah.
said, what are we going to do?
Right.
Not,
yes.
what are they,
What is fifth
or
grade gonna
how
do?
are they
Right.
gonna
It's
fix the
not
problem?
trying to make
I'm
it
pretty
someone's-
sure they're the ones
Yeah.
responsible for it. That's the mindset shift that I have seen happen in the district. And as we continue to shift the culture into a collaborative, a team, a united, it's a we, not an us versus them, or me or you. We're gonna get everything that we're wanting to see different, and the impacts and changes from the things that we've already started are going to continue to be realized more and more as time goes on, just like you said. But the work starts now with the conversations and the agreeing that we can do better. We can do better.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm still learning the district, but is there cross grade level meetings like
No.
this?
Not yet.
I did talk to Dr. Shum about that when we had the Arby's meeting. I told her it'd be really interesting, like at the end of the year, to sit with, as fifth grade teachers, sit with sixth grade and say, what were the shortcomings this year? What can we focus more on? To find out directly from their mouths what we could do better with. Same thing from primary to intermediate. Every grade level to have that conversation to where we can tell, fifth grade can tell fourth grade,
Yeah.
this is what was hurting us this year, big
We
time.
used to have vertical alignment meetings like once every
Because it's
few
one thing
weeks
to look at a
within primary.
document, but it's something different
To have a conversation,
conversations
yes.
and collaboration
We
among
did
the
it last
campuses.
year over really great reading when we were gonna adopt really great reading. Second grade went to intermediate, but it was very much so like, it wasn't the norm, so it was like a little like,
Yeah.
it was a little awkward.
But we
Of course.
used to do it as our PLC. It
Yeah.
would be, we'd have different things to do during PLC, and one PLC was dedicated to vertical alignment
Right.
for all of ELA, kinder through second or whatever.
And that's what we were kind of working to set up. as we had that Wednesday PLC time, but because it was decided to kind of not want, it was as a district, we decided we didn't want that time anymore. How do we recreate that time so that we do and can do the things that we're talking about versus asking people to work late or, stay late on an evening or something like that, where maybe we can pay you, maybe we can't, versus having that time already built in and consistently on that Wednesday where, you can schedule, you can rotate, every week can be this or every next week can look like that.
Those PD days when we don't have kids would be.
And that's the thing, we're gonna have to really look at our new calendar, knowing that we've increased the student days by 2. PD days have been decreased by 2, so we've gone from 9 to 7. And those 3 or 4 days are already spent at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I think all those meetings would just in general help with the culture of the district and knowing that, hey, what can I do to help you? Knowing that the grade level below us, we're all working together to make it better and knowing that we're communicating the gaps in, I guess, our teaching and it's really separated, I guess, between campuses. And I just feel like it would just bring everyone together and make everyone feel like, hey, we're on the same team and we've got this and we have a plan. And I think it would do more than just making us aware overall. It would.
This makes me want to ask
Do a lot
a
of good.
whole bunch of questions about lead teachers, department heads, and just on that level of the organizational chart, what's really going on there? So that as we look at
Yes,
that
sir.
level for maybe kind of starting this type of work, knowing and maybe not knowing that there might be some inconsistencies with how that level of the
Yes, sir.
organization works at each of the campuses. I would like to know a little bit more about that because I think we could get a lot of value out of that level. And as we kind of work through our department leads, doing this type of work so that either we rotate people in or we have key players at certain times of the year when we do have our meetings. We just have to agree on a structure or a system that will work for everybody and will get the most value out of our time.
That would be a
'Cause-
great idea.
Yeah,
That's a
because
good
I mean,
start.
I've had an admin, and I don't know which one now, but I've heard it so many times that primary, because I did primary for 10 years, and then I moved over, now I'm at the intermediate. But I've heard so many times, like, primary and intermediate are one elementary, but we're broken up and housed in 2 places. But I can tell you, I had no idea what I was getting into when I moved to intermediate. It's a huge awakening of what is really needed and where the kids are lacking and what we really, it was a big change. So even though we are one elementary, I never knew what it really entailed. And I never really understood, like, as a second grade teacher, I don't think it hit me until I saw it myself where 3rd grade was having to catch up things that, we lacked. And so even now, just thinking, I was telling middle school teachers that I reached out to, the English teachers, like, what can I do now to help prepare? Like, middle school, like, what do you need from me? Because I feel like that's where
Oh, you're the one they asked about.
well, that was me. I feel like that's what we are 4 different campuses, but we really aren't all together. It's that school, that school, that school, that school.
Just like we have an opportunity to fix that before we even split off a little bit more with 5th and 6th moving in a couple of years. We have that opportunity to build that community within the elementary schools before even more division created.
I think the department chairs is a good start. At least one person representing and kind of meeting. I know subs is an issue when it comes to if it was done during the week, or I know that becomes an issue, but at least one person, like, she would be our ELA, and she would be a good representative to go, to the intermediate and to the high school.
Right.
So, like, that would be a good way, and then to disperse that information amongst the different team members.
It would be it could be a place that we could possibly start. Obviously, that wouldn't be where we would want to end it, but since the work isn't currently being done, and knowing that it's important that we just get started with the work, that's one possibility that we should at least look at to see if there's something there or not.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, with that too, it's hard sometimes, I know, to, when you're asking people to be lead teachers and grade level leads and I feel like people accept these positions not fully understanding what it entails and you have to buy into what you're doing.
Of course.
And you have to put in that work and be willing to share your knowledge with other people. It's not a position where you can just be like, I'm this, but nothing is becoming of it. It's an important position that you have to put someone there who's, like I said, who's willing to do the work, because I would imagine it's a lot of work. And if all you're doing is coordinating meetings about birthdays and field trips, it's not quite enough right there.
Birthdays and field trips, I would definitely just agree with you that, yes, that's probably not the best use of time if that's how time is being spent by any lead or anybody in the position of leadership.
Sir.
So far, we've talked about a couple of important things. Professional development, obviously, that's really been a huge push and focus for us, right? Wanting to get as much out of that, and then talking about that in the context of vertical and horizontal alignment. Definitely going to look at that in more detail, absolutely. Science teaks and creating more time in the day for instruction that we know we have to get to, but currently our time does not allow us to get to. That's definitely something that we need to look at. Definitely, definitely. Those are two major things right there. And then if you add the third, which is reviewing job descriptions and roles and responsibilities within levels of the organization, specifically in our example, lead teachers, department heads. What should they do? What do we want them to do?
Accountability for staff attending content meetings and not just signing forms. Making sure that we're there to do a job and learn from our mistakes and grow. And I know sometimes people get tired, but
We're all tired.
this is not the job where everything's gonna stay the same if you don't change anything.
Right. The only thing we know.
We're better than that.
That's the only thing we know that's consistent is the change. That's what this is. And the more we try to resist change or try to figure out how we can go around it, we're just doing everything that we're trying to accomplish here a disservice. Because we're resisting or trying to do something that's working against the flow of where everybody's headed, right? We're all rowing in one general direction, but it's weird knowing that as we all are rowing here, we still have some that are trying to go off into the distance on their own. And we know who those individuals are, more so than maybe we share or kind of reveal. But we're aware of who is on board and who isn't. It's important that we all get on board if we want to
Yes.
see the changes that we're talking about, especially if we're not wanting to wait 5 or 10 years to see the changes. If we're only really interested in 1 or 2 years.
If we're doing what's best for the kids, it
Is
shouldn't be
there
comfortable.
consistency between the campuses as far as, like, do all campuses have just a department chair, or is there lead teachers and
It looks
department
different on
chairs?
every campus.
That's what I was wondering, because that could also be something that we could, to create more consistency as well.
Absolutely. That is definitely going to be a focus, for sure. High school,
Yes, I know, right? It feels
primary.
encouraging,
we all have.
yes.
What's burning on the mind right now about the things that we know we can be better at?
Well, so going back to science, we used to teach science like for a couple of weeks and only focus on science, so we had more time. And then we go to social studies
And
for a
then
couple weeks.
rotate and do this.
And that worked out so much better because we could explicitly teach, we had time to do the projects and the experiments. Now we have maybe 35 minutes for one, 35 minutes for the other, because we gotta go to lunch, we gotta go here. So it's in the back burner, to be honest, it's in the back burner.
If we knew that's what we were doing and we liked it, why did we change? Or what made us change? Was it the HQIM? Was it other initiatives?
I honestly don't.
The minutes,
Second
I think the
grade
minutes
has
changed.
15
The minutes changed.
Right. If we can recall, we used to have
We were
our
over
bell
minutes.
and our minutes a little more extended than maybe some of our neighboring districts had. And I know that was a point of contention because we felt like we had all these extra minutes banked and we could take like 20, weather days because we had all the minutes in the world to do that. But as we reduced our minutes, but increased expectations with student achievement and
Yes.
programming,
Yes.
we did this.
That's exactly what happened.
We did this inverse thing where if we had just kind of maintained our minutes and added all the things that we're doing with curriculum, programming, student achievement, it would kind of match the time and you would realize, oh wow, there's all this time to now do all these things that we're being asked to do.
Right.
Now that we're trying to, bell to bell and maximize the time, it's just simply not enough time, especially
That's
for
exactly
adding
what
in
happened.
science and social
Trying to
studies.
get them in line takes,
Right.
a couple few minutes there, a few minutes. I
Just
gotta
a
go
couple,
to the
right?
bathroom. I mean, the transition is hard, so when it's back to back to back, it's hard to get to fully do what you wanna do.
Second grade has 15 minutes for science every day. And it's just, you have 15 minutes for
At the
science,
end of the day, it's
15
Takes you
minutes
5
for
to get your
social
book out.
studies. And it's just, realistically, you can't do a lesson in 15 minutes.
Do the
Not to the
daily-
depth that a lesson should be done.
Right.
And then if you take time from something else, you're behind in something else.
Right.
So it's, I just feel like it's unfair to kids. You're setting them up for.
and those are the fun subjects.
Yeah, I know, they look forward to
Do
that.
the
One
daily
possible-
minutes match the state minutes?
Yeah, we're fine with the minutes, but it
But
doesn't,
I mean, like what's required, like what is, science is
science?
this many minutes and social studies is, does it, if we were to plan the day out like that, does
the
it?
state doesn't really require us to apply minutes like that, although it would be kind of equitable to look at all contents within the same like lens of minutes, like applying the same minutes, right, to be fair and to distribute like the
Right.
focus. But it doesn't really, the state doesn't ask you to do that. The state only asks you to look at the TEKS and make sure you are teaching the TEKS and that the students have opportunities to master the TEKS,
Another possible,
which can be done in a variety of ways as districts decide
I know
to
that
teach.
the district I was teaching in, we had, and I wasn't sure if it was, again, it was a long time ago. There was, but I don't know if it was district, it was a district process, not so much a state, but we had, and every year was different, 90 minutes for reading, so many minutes for math, and so they made sure that within the schedule, the minutes that the district was requiring was going to be able to be feasible in the daily schedule.
Yes, that would be a kind of
I
a
don't
district
know.
regulation, like an
Right.
administrative regulation to set minute standards across the board so that equity and fairness would be set. And then it would be up to the campus, I would assume, to kind of make that look the way you would want to with the curriculum and things. But everyone's going to have a set minute standard across the board.
But I know that we didn't run into the issues like here where the buses have to
Right.
spread out a lot further. We were about the same size, but we were there. Everything was closer and you would read, right, they're closer in proximity, so the buses only had these perimeters. Versus here, it extends out a little further, so that's why I understand that the middle school starts later. So I just.
Yes, we stagger the time so that the routes can double up and get everybody where they need to go, knowing that we're a little short and by a little, like we're like severely understaffed when it comes to having the true like supports with the staff to get everything that we want to do done efficiently and timely. Unfortunately, we're just not there with our
Right,
staffing,
right.
not sure if we ever will be, which is why we have to have things staggered that way. But that doesn't mean we have to stagger it by reducing the minutes. We can still stagger and expand the minutes back out again. We just have to we just have to have that stagger in place so that the buses have that
Makes
time
it,
to
yeah.
double back up.
If I remember from when I was on the SBDM team at the primary, I want to say that the minutes were reduced for the science and social studies so that they could increase the STEAM time. Am I correct?
They wanted both science and social studies taught in a day.
Yeah.
So we used to just do, instead of dividing 15 minutes, it was 30 minutes
It was
for
30.
one, and then we do
But I
science
think
for
the
3 weeks.
rationale was because they were gonna implement the STEAM time and add minutes to the STEAM time. It's still the same?
STEAM is connected
It's
to.
I know that that was part of the.
STEAM's connected to wind time, right?
No,
No, it's
not-
it's our team, our special team.
Oh, specials, okay.
One
So
day, we
she'll-
go 1 day a week.
She'll still try to tie into the TEKS.
That
but
means
then-
how do you get,
And then
Our science,
that's right, I had blocked that part out of my brain because when I hear that, it's like a cringe for me, I'm not gonna lie.
our
Because
science time is
realistically,
when
what
we
can you
come
really
back
do
and
with that?
process.
Right,
Realistically,
yeah.
like realistically,
They love
what can you do
going
with
to the
that?
theme, But we go once a
It's
week.
fun.
So what really happens in that once a week experience?
They
Do
come
they
back with
art?
teams.
I can tell you what happens in ours.
Other classes, like do all the
Art.
classes get to go?
Art.
Like 3 days PE.
Is that
and
the
then music.
A in STEAM?
I
Those are
think
specials.
our
Heavily
STEM teacher
emphasized.
is really good. I love her. She tries her best. But when she ends up with that amount of kids in a
Yeah, I was
room
about
at
to say,
one
y'all know how
time.
many kids she
And all
has?
the things
It's
she
just-
takes on also.
So
It's
let me
not-
just say this, since there are no administrators technically in the room.
Come on.
It's
I know.
super crucial to only do things that are realistic and achievable.
Yes.
If you are in a position where none of those are happening, I don't understand. So if that's happening, someone's gotta help me understand, because I don't get it. So help me get it.
We don't understand either, sir.
Help me understand why we would do that.
Would you like a cookie? I can go get you a cookie, sir.
That's
I
been
love
my
cookies.
question is, if it doesn't make sense, why are we doing it?
Correct.
And that's kind of been my
And why
motto
would we
this
hold
year,
anybody
like,
accountable to
This
it
doesn't
Right.
make
if it
sense.
especially doesn't make sense? And if it can't be done,
Yes.
if it can't be done, why are we expecting people to be able to do it?
I think the frustrating thing that I've heard that's
teacher though.
finally changing is that's how we've always done it.
That's the.
And
Oh my
it's-
gosh, that's horrible.
It's really hard to change that. And I know like trying to be positive and trying to like get people to get that growth mindset and then, but that's not how it's done. And it's hard when you don't have people backing that. You do have people back you on that, but
That wears
it's
you
hard
out.
to change.
Yeah.
You know?
It's hard to change.
In all
Yeah.
fairness though,
Some
I'm hearing
people,
on what I'm hearing on one side is, we need more STEM, we need more STEM, we need more help with STEM. And then you have a solution at the primary, where we're gonna give you a STEAM lab. And it's like, well, no, that's not what we want either.
Well, it's just
No,
not
it's
being
not that.
targeted, it's not being utilized appropriately to supplement the
teaks
TEKS.
But
Well,
I
it's-
think
it's
the
kind of-
thing is.
But
It's
as
a lot
also
more than a TEKS issue, it's willingness
But
to,
what we're giving her,
It's
when I walk in
multifaceted,
with like
unfortunately.
45 kids
That's
for
too
her to
many
do a
kids.
It
STEAM
is.
lesson with, and like I have inclusion, and there's a lot of kids that need extra services.
Right.
And I'm going in there with 45 kids, she can be amazing and
Right.
all the things, plan out a good lesson, but having that many kids with one teacher, and you have a para, but it's just that amount of time, it's not.
It's a lot of
Master
behavior
schedule.
too.
Yeah, it's not, it sounds
If
to
you got
me,
the
it's more
numbers
of a,
down,
even
you
higher
know,
up, like administrative, it's a design
By the time you get
problem.
your
Yes.
scissors
Yes.
out.
If
and
your design is once a week with 45 kids for 30 minutes, I
Perfect
mean-
world, it's amazing, but realistic.
only if that
you know,
person, only
it's
if the perfect world has perfect people and perfect kids in it.
And it's not Carvajal. Carvajal is like rock
Yeah, no,
star.
no,
She's
you have
rock
a
star.
lot of behavior.
It's
But
the program, not
it's
itself, not
yeah.
the
But even
person.
like in our community, like we have all these wonderful things happening at
Yes,
the
we
high
do,
school.
all the time.
We have these we have such amazing talent at the high
We
school
do.
with these kids and we don't utilize them. We could be having camps during intercessions and I know it takes people to run and I know it takes money,
Sure
I
does.
understand. But like those kids need hours, they're begging for hours. To do little labs, like to do some of that STEAM stuff, to hold a little camp, like getting it's been, I mean, I've been in this district for 12 years now. This is my 12th year, but it's been in the community, it's just like, it's been less and I know it's hard to get them involved, but was a shift at some point where it's not fun anymore. I'm gonna be honest. It's just not fun anymore. There's nothing for them to look forward to. You know, they keep asking, well, what do we do for 5th grade when we end our year? And it's like, we end and we say bye. Like, you know, they used to have a party. They used to have this big thing. Like, it's
Yes.
just getting with the STEAM and I'm thinking camps and, you know, having these little like these kids, we could use them.
Yes.
We're doing all this work at the high school and prepping these kids to become these teachers and these STEAM people and these engineers. Why aren't we using them for our younger kids?
I want to raise the
I agree.
TEACH program because I feel like if we had high school kids
Yes.
that wanted to be a teacher,
yes.
and
Yes.
we can use
Absolutely.
them to do camps, we can get them with teachers that love it, and like let them do lessons, let them tutor kids that are TMPM after school, let them do like a STEM night, get them on like, I think it would be really fun, and you're encouraging our kids from high school to go to be a teacher, because we need more teachers, getting them back, and if they learn, you know, I don't know. I
Now
really
you guys
want
know why I'll even say, yeah, it was probably me. Addition to the +2 for the 180 days, one of the major reasons why I was really focused on pushing that through was that now opens up grant opportunities that when we didn't have 180 days, we didn't have that, we weren't eligible. Now that we have 180 days, we're eligible now for things like the Grow Your Own grant and the ADSY grant and some of the other grants that are currently available that literally speak to the very same things you just said
And the
about.
ADSY's really, really good in that,
With the
with the ACE,
Yep.
combining it with the ACE.
universities that we have partnerships with, their students,
They can partner with
education
us,
students
the little
need
ones. That's what I
hours
was
to
thinking
tutor
in
to
our
do this
SBA.
and that
and
and.
community
Yeah.
with
Like, we could
primary
bring
and
them
high school
over.
working
Yes.
together.
Help us tutor.
And that's the innovation I really hope that we
Yes.
can all kind of get behind and get excited about, because as much as we talk about the need to do this and to be
Right.
perfect in HQIM and the delivery and the planning and the teaching and the assessing, I get it, trust me, I'm about as OCD with that stuff as they come. But I'm also real and a person and even a dad now, so I get it, I do. Like, I want my kid to have fun and to have those opportunities. As a parent, I want to look forward to things that I know are engaging, but also might lead to a little bit of learning too. But hook me, sell me on something, right?
Right now, we're
I
not
would
hooking, sir.
And that's the thing, like, we've got to get back to what makes us TM.
That sounds so bad. Oh my gosh. In
Got a
retrospect,
hook.
that was bad choice of words.
My,
But
we gotta do.
that's one
In-
of our words for.
in recognizing that we have the problem with, that was horrible. No, in recognizing the problem with timing in fifth grade, one of the possible solutions that we had was the implementation of Eureka has taken away from time to fully prepare for science. So one solution was, even though we do have the 30 minutes, switching over to 3 pods so that
Tripod it.
even if I
yes.
am the science teacher and I have 30 minutes, that's what I'm doing. I'm focused on it. It's quality instruction. I'm 100% prepared because I'm not worried about anything else.
Right.
That was the other solution that
It's on the table.
thought of.
Definitely
That was what
want
we did,
that
and
to be
it
explored.
helped a lot.
It
Because
has
you had
to
the
help,
reading,
yeah.
the math, and then you had the science.
Because it's a
And
lot.
when we did 2, when we're pairs of 2, there was always one subject that we had that time. So if I was the reading teacher and I had my math partner, we both did science. So, or then we switched it to where we both did math.
Yep.
And in fifth
So-
grade, it's, we have Math Star
And
and
Science,
Science Star,
right,
and I'm like,
That science needs to be emphasized
Yeah.
because it's like the 8th grade social studies that you're
Exactly.
getting exposure that year, yeah.
And why 8th grade social studies is so low, because it's like, oh yeah, anybody forgot,
Exactly,
we
it's-
forgot about 8th grade social studies,
We're
they
starting
test.
2nd grade?
Yes. Yes,
So
yes,
see, sir, we
yes.
come with problems and solutions.
But that's the thing, nothing we're throwing out isn't anything like out of the box or like just, oh my God, I can't believe we couldn't have thought of this earlier. It's we know these things are things that others are doing or we've done in the past or are familiar with, but we just need these ideas to be voiced and communicated so that those become part of the conversation. It's like we have all these great ideas, but oftentimes we're either reluctant or hesitant to share them for whatever reason we want to chalk it up to fear, judging, getting in trouble, whatever. But I wouldn't even understand why you could even assume any of those things, knowing that if you're being asked to be creative or to brainstorm or to join in on the decision-making, then yeah, like, I'm not saying you need to get as wild and crazy with the ideas as you need to, but sometimes the most simple and in-your-face solution is the one we need to be grabbing onto, rather than pretending like it doesn't exist, but we all know it's in the room, right?
Like you said, the free solution, you know, we're always
I
talking
love
about
free
budget, her free
solutions.
solution, we have the talent here that we're not using.
We do.
Free talent.
And I would say, getting back to the question about where in the point in time in the district did things change with our parents, it was when we decided we didn't want them back post-COVID.
Yep, I agree.
That's when
That's
things
created the
changed
biggest
with our
gap.
parents. When we decided to not let them back on campus after COVID.
It became us versus them.
And I don't get that, because as soon as you say something out of your mouth to say, we are not gonna allow parents on campus, you have to assume every single parent in the district just heard that.
Yep.
And if you say enough times, they'll hear it enough times, and they won't come around. Only the crazies will come around. That's it, that's what ends up happening. You ostracize and you alienate your good people, and all that's left are the ones that will always be there, but you tend to not focus on them as much because you have all the other good parents and families kind of taking up the space too.
Or they leave their emails in the draft.
There you go. Gosh, that Darnold draft box, gosh.
Those are the ones we get.
But that's the thing, how easy of a change is that? We currently do not allow parents on campus. Blows my mind, blows it majorly, as in like, someone's gonna have to help me like pick up the pieces, because you're telling me I can't have lunch with my kid on their birthday? I can't walk my kid to class on the first day? And I'm a brand new parent, but I'm saying like, if I was denied that opportunity, I'd be going to another district.
What I will say
I
about,
probably would, just because those would be very important moments for me.
Yes.
Knowing that I'm an older parent, I'm probably only gonna have one child, so why am I gonna allow this one opportunity to like slip through my hands? Knowing in 10 or 20 years, I might wanna look back and point to photos and pictures and videos and stuff and like,
That's, I agree. There's just, there were parents that would come every day to eat with their
we gotta
kids.
put a rule in
And we didn't
place.
have a lot of room already.
that's what I was gonna
But
say.
there
Like, if they
could be
give them a
events,
certain amount of
more
times to come,
events.
fine. Like, there has to be
Absolutely.
rules, because you have parents coming, bringing their kids to kinder, they wanna open all the breakfast, hang out for like the next 15, 20
yeah,
minutes.
they don't need to help
Like,
us cook
that's-
breakfast in the back or
That's where we're
anything.
trying to like, hey, it's okay,
Maybe
we got it.
walk them to the door of the classroom,
But
because
my
that's
thing
where
is,
some
like,
of it, let
There
me
just has to
open
be
their mouth.
boundaries.
if my,
Boundaries, rules, and if we can agree on that, and if we can hold our parents to it, I think we're gonna be okay.
But remember that security has also increased.
Oh, absolutely.
That's been an
So a lot
But
of
we
it has to do
can't,
with
but
that.
it just can't be this zero tolerance where we're gonna use safety as a reason why we're going to completely deny parents any
Right.
access
And
or
it shouldn't
opportunity to be in
completely
campus.
denied. It should be a agreement.
Balance.
Absolutely.
Involvement was better
And
too.
I'm not sure if anybody has picked this up or not, but definitely from my perspective, it always just drives me so crazy. We are always so extreme with how we want to approach a change or a difference, right? We go from like one end of the spectrum where maybe we're not doing anything at all, to all of a sudden now we want to just go all in to the deep end on something where now we're doing all this stuff that's never happened before. And it's just like, maybe if it's best if we just kind of met in the middle on some of this and maybe transition to some of this, knowing that if we weren't doing it, that's okay. But as long as we can kind of get to where we need to be with a plan in place, no one's going to fault us for any of that. It's when we decide we try to do too much too soon or all at once, or this
This
crazy
gradual.
swing stuff, it's never gonna have the effect you
From a
want.
psychological standpoint, that's based on social trauma. I mean, you had COVID, which was traumatizing. Then you had the incident at Robb Elementary. Again, another huge trauma. And so now, I don't blame our leaders for saying, hey, we've got to stop. We just have to stop. And then maybe gradually we'll get to the point to
Right.
where you want to get, to the balance. But for right now, it's still, that Robb Elementary is still fresh. It's very fresh. And I think that we need to respect that. Our leaders are doing the best that they can. I'd be terrified as a school principal.
But that's the problem,
to
Dr.
think.
D. That's the problem, Dr. D. As a school leader, you can't be terrified. Can't.
It just has to be boundaries, because you have your little ones who have the huge meltdowns, throwing things. You don't want other parents to be seeing that and then posting
course.
it on the parent page.
It's all about balance.
Right.
And finding the moments in time when if we can take advantage of an opportunity for our parents to connect them to school, to us, to their kids, I just think we should look at that and see what are the options available to us to start inching closer to having a better and just a more open and transparent relationship with our families. Because I have to hear about it all the time from our board of trustees. That's their number one gripe, is just access and opportunity to be involved and to participate in educational opportunities and experiences.
And I think we're gradually getting there with the parents on patrol and the watchdogs.
Oh, yeah.
There's parents all the time.
Even
in
if we
there
did an
helping
open
in one way or
house
another.
to where there was a couple like once a month, I know it takes teacher time, but letting them come in, they wanna see what anchor charts are on the wall, what their child's desks look like. Cause I know it's the first thing a watchdog does, is they go and they see their child's desk and they're like, oh, this is where all his sisters are, so I feel like if we open the doors, it's more controlled in the evening. That might be something that would help them feel
it's
more
just
involved.
size two, because I'm gonna say with the lunch thing, with my own class is being shoved in a corner and having to sit at white picnic tables rather than actual lunch tables, then I'm sorry, I don't want parents in there because my kids can't even
Well, yeah.
sit down to eat.
That's just being realistic, like, we can't barely fit in here, let alone
Right.
parents, and I
Right.
think they would understand that,
Right.
especially if we took a picture
But
of the picnic table.
I understand, like, okay, on this day of this month, we're gonna allow these 3 classes if your parents wanna come and eat, and you have a table set off to the side or an outdoor little picnic picnic lunch, like, I get that
Parents
stuff.
that would come every
Of course,
single
and that's
day.
not, and
it
that's the
doesn't become
extreme,
special
that's the
anymore.
extreme that we're not gonna allow that to be what happens.
But we were having issues with parents taking photos of
Yes,
other
that
children
was another
and
thing.
posting things on Facebook and
Or only
yelling
buying
and
pizza for certain kids
disciplining
and not
other
the rest of
people's,
the
and there's
class.
not enough people to monitor the parents who are monitoring the kids.
We should
Y'all-
see
y'all know
how,
what you're-
we're bare bones and monitors right now for lunch. If you wanna go
Yeah.
help us out?
Yeah, you guys know what you're talking about, right, when you're saying all these things, right?
I'm not
We
doing
need,
lunch
we need parent training.
I'm not doing lunch duty, sir,
That's all
sorry.
we need, training. What happens when people don't know the things that they should know or need to know in order to do the things that we're asking them to? We can't expect them to just know all this stuff. Maybe they're not truly aware that they
Some of
should be
them would
doing that.
volunteer more too, if there was like a volunteer training. So
Right.
Some of them might even
We-
help
we
out,
have
like
that.
with duty and stuff
Yeah, we
like
do
that,
have
so.
that.
That's something we're definitely looking at
Lunch
currently
duty
is
help.
how to kind of help train our parents on certain things like band behavior.
Oh my
Like,
gosh,
How,
holy
how should we conduct ourselves at a community pep rally? How should we cheer? How should we celebrate?
Things that should be
It's
common
just-
sense, but they're not.
That's why the training is so exciting. It's just like a bunch of common sense all over the place that I feel like anybody who comes to it will definitely get something out of it. And so that just sounds a little silly, right? But it's really not, because tons of districts have parent training for all those things I just said. And I'm telling you, it makes a big difference.
But it's kind
It
of,
sounds condescending.
It does?
It does, but
I wouldn't call it parent training.
But some parents really don't know
a
the
lot of
etiquette.
parents don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there are a ton. Like, I have a student that I haven't seen in 5 days because her mother hasn't treated her with lice.
Yes.
And she keeps being sent home because she has live bugs in
They
her
send her
hair.
home?
Yeah,
They don't
they've been
send
sent-
mine home.
No, they send her home.
girl, that's for another meeting.
My parents always up.
Inconsistency noted.
They don't know how to parent. A lot of them don't, because they're so young.
Yep.
Yeah,
They-
or
and then
grandma's
they're-
raising
yeah,
them.
Grandma's
grandparents
raising
are
and she
raising
did a
them.
great
And
job.
they were
It's a
very
different time
Yeah.
than what it was years ago. So I would
The
I would
is not
want
there
a
anymore
meeting like that
sometimes.
because they might not know and
Right,
maybe they just
and
need
honestly, we
someone
would
to
probably
tell them.
poll, before we have any meeting, it's always good, of course, to collect some data, right? So before we would do anything, it would more likely be like a survey sent out via Parent Square to ask certain topics or things that, hey, these are new initiatives and programs we have started. In addition to this, these are other things we're gonna continue to offer and expand into in the future years. Now that we're kind of reimagining and reinventing the district into the 21st century look we all want, what are some of the things that we as a district can help support or give or teach or train parents in order to help them reacclimate and understand the new 21st century way of doing things, right? Parent training would involve HQIM and going over all the crazy acronyms and the things that we're talking about so they can at least follow along when we say these things. And just kind of going into the routine of building a culture where we could have nights and sessions built around educational things, but it could also be other things like just district-wide opportunities, volunteer work, how to have a great experience at a game, that type of thing, how to volunteer in the things that as a district, here are the help, here's the help and here's what this looks like. Are you interested? Would you want to be a part of that? And just making that known to people,
That could
right?
also be that boundary when we were talking about like, letting back into, like, okay, this is what needs to happen when you're here. So those expectations, because, out of respect for what happened at Robb Elementary, that would be something because some of them may not know.
I'm gonna start making my way over